Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil the Conquistadork. It's that time again. Our dear Newfie friend from the Canadian wilderness, Mr. MichaelBTheGameGenie, has put forth a new gauntlet. This week, the Top 3 Tuesday topic is your top 3 games you would take on a desert island. I already have sand in my throat. Excuse me. So, this is important to me because it's not necessarily the top 3 best games in your opinion. It's the top 3 games that you would take with you out into the desert, out into a place where you're not going to interact with a lot of people, something that'll keep you occupied for as long as possible. So I think the best kind of category versus the desert island category, it blurs a little bit, and sure, if you got a Venn diagram here and there, you're going to see some overlapping, but the fact of the matter is it's definitely a different way of thinking about games. And I got to thinking, and I came up with my top 3, and this one actually took me longer than any of the other ones in terms of deciding which ones would be which, and I'm pretty happy with what I came up with. So, without further ado, let's begin. My first game is Shadowrun for the Sega Genesis. Now, when it comes to Shadowrun, especially on 16-bit systems, the one that gets lauded the most tends to be Shadowrun for the SNES. It's a classic game, and frankly, most RPGs on the SNES are going to be very, very well remembered. However, I argue in favor of the Genesis version. It was an incredible story. You had 3 different options of the types of characters you wanted to play. You could play a gator shaman, you could play a street samurai, or you could play, my favorite, a decker. That brings you to the best part of the Sega Genesis Shadowrun experience, because hacking the Matrix is basically an entirely different game on top of everything else. It introduces a new way to break into buildings, to find out information, to turn off security cameras. All kinds of stuff can be reached through the Matrix, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's a deep game, and I played it for hours and hours and hours when I was younger. And a lot of people say, you look at those old games with rose-tinted glasses. Of course you played that one game for hours and hours and hours, because you probably only had 3 games to begin with. And in this case, it wasn't true. Even after I got different games, even after I graduated to higher levels of platforms and bought an N64, for example, I always came back to Shadowrun. It is outstanding, it's gritty, the combat is fun, the characters are fun, it is huge and just so much of a good time. And it would definitely represent something of a classic sensibility for the top 3 games that I would take on a deserted island. Alright, the second one, we're going up chronologically. That's the word. We're going chronologically through the ether, through the history of video games, if you will. And that's what brings me to my second game that I would have to have on a deserted island. It is Knights of the Old Republic. Holy shit, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic blew my mind. On more than one occasion, I have absolutely declared that this is the game that made me want to write about video games. Not just because it was such a satisfying role-playing experience, not just because becoming a Jedi in an old Star Wars world that existed thousands upon thousands of years before Star Wars and Empire and Return of the Jedi and the trilogies that we're not going to talk about. Before all that, before anything, it's this great big blank slate. There are more than 2 Sith out in the world. Hell, there's an entire army, an entire planet of Sith, and you can choose to side with them, or you could choose to fight with the light, and it's a lot of fun. It was one of those early examples of a morality meter in video games, which is, you know, iffy, but the fact of the matter is for a very long time, I would play this game twice in a row, about once every 6 months. I would beat it on the light side, and then I'd beat it on the dark side, and I'd shelve it, and about 11 months later, I'd beat it on the light side, and beat it on the dark side. And this continued for a long time. Knights of the Old Republic was an important game, not just because it was an outstanding use of the Star Wars universe for a role-playing series, but because it introduced that morality system in a way that worked pretty well. It also has one of the most infamous and possibly the best twist ending that you could hope for in a game like this. This was before your BioShocks. This was before your thank you kindly. This is before all that shit. All that shit. Are we done yet? Oh no, we got more to go. Okay. Alright, so, Knights of the Old Republic. Holy crap, amazing game. If you haven't played it, pick it up. The hell's wrong with you? And that brings me to my final selection for what games I would take with me to a desert island. Desert island? Deserted island? Does it really matter? It implies the same thing. Here we go. The final game, and in my opinion, the most important out of all three of these. Civilization. I don't care which. I would prefer 6 or 5, the two most recent ones, to come out, but frankly, I'll take the first one. I'll take the second one. Hell, I'll take the one that they made for Xbox 360. I'll take any of them. This game has kept me occupied since I was in grade school. This series is so in-depth and so huge and global spanning, quite literally. There's something so wonderful about taking control of a country, taking control of your civilization, and determining how you're going to win. That's the funniest part to me of all, that you can take a civilization and somehow win. Are you going to do it with art? Are you going to do it with science? Are you going to do it just by fucking pushing everybody else's heads down the toilets until they scream, "Uncle, Uncle, Uncle, Egypt wins, Egypt wins." Egypt was the country I played most when I was a kid. It's gotten only better with time. The 6th version, if you might remember, was one of my favorite games of last year. It is definitely one of the most full and complete iterations of Civilization. And Civilization 5, with all of the DLC and everything like that, that's another one of those greatest of all time games. I have pumped thousands of hours into these games, and I feel like I'd pump 1,000 more, waiting for the rescue team to arrive and save me from dehydration and the odd predatory horseshoe crab. You know, those crabs, they eat worms mostly, but I can see where on a deserted island one could become a monster and have cultists worshipping it and just praising it, and I have to fight it or avoid it. Oh, how good would that be? Now there's a video game pitch. Let's fight the horseshoe crab. Seem to have gotten off track there at the end, but it remains the same. Civilization is not only one of my favorite games of all time, it's definitely the most necessary game for anyone who is going to spend time Gilligan's Islanding it up. Gilligan's Islanding it up? Gilligan's Islanding it up. So those are my top 3 games to take on a desert island. Now this is the Top 3 Tuesday response video, and for those of you who don't know, this is an invitation for anyone who wants to respond. Respond to Michael B, respond to me. Tell us what your favorite games are that you would have to have with you on a desert island. Tell me in the comments below, or make your own video and share it with us. In the meantime, in between time, my name is Phil the Conquistadork, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
If Daddy don't sink a little drinky, Daddy gets sad and blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you.